All right, these are going to be my starting small forward rankings for the 2024-2025 NBA season. Let's get started. At number 30, I got Taylor Hendrick from the Utah Jazz. I think he was 27 last year. I think he's going to be right on the same level of player. I just think he does fall a few spots here in the rankings. Number 29 is going to be Andrew Wiggins. He was 26. He falls a few spots. He's a really good player. Not a good player last year. Not a great player, at least. I think he's going to be around the same level of guy. He's not been great, but he's a solid role player, just not a very good starter. Number 28, Josh Green. He was a bench player last year. He was a decent bench player. I think he's going to be a solid starter here for the Dallas Mavericks. Number 27 here is going to be Harrison Barnes at number 20 last season, so he's going to drop quite a bit of spots here. But I do think he's a solid player. I don't think he's going to have a great year for San Antonio. He's a good role player nonetheless. Number 26, Dillon Brooks here for Houston. Moves up a couple of spots. Last year he was a streaky shooter. I think he's going to be a little bit better this year. Not too much difference, though. He's definitely a solid low-level starter here for the Rockets. Number 25, Max Strus. He's going to be out until about December. I think he tore his meniscus or something like that. He was a really good player last year. I think he's going to be solid this year. Just a slightly worse player overall, but still really good shooter here for the Cavs. Number 24, Derrick Jones Jr., now in Los Angeles. He's going to be starting here. He's going to be solid. He's a good athletic player. He's going to have a good role here in Los Angeles, and definitely a solid low-level starter as well. Number 23, Zachary Thatcher, a rookie, number 1 overall pick, actually. I definitely do not think he's going to be the best rookie in this class, but I do think he's going to be a solid starter here as a rookie. Number 22, Aaron Nesmith from Indiana. I have him dropping about 5 spots from where he was last year. He was really good in the postseason, so that is kind of what I'm going to drop him for. I don't expect him to do I do not expect him to keep up his postseason stats. I expect him more to keep up his regular season stats, which would have been around 22 last season. It's when his postseason numbers were. That kind of bumped him up a few spots. Number 21, Cam Johnson. He was a bench player last year. He was a great bench player. I think he's going to be a good starter now this year. Number 20, Ausar Thompson from Detroit. I think he's going to be improved a little bit, not too much. As long as his three-point shot can improve just a little bit, he's going to be a really good player. If he can get to like a 30% three-point shooter, he could be a top 15 guy here by the end of the year. But he was about 18 or so, maybe even 14 or so last year. He has to get that respectably to like a 30%. Number 19, Chris Middleton. He was number 8 last year. He was also very good in the postseason last year. He probably would have been around 12 if it wasn't for his postseason numbers, which the Bucks were without Giannis. So that is kind of why he took a big step up in the postseason. I do not expect him to have a very good regular season this year, but still a pretty solid starter just by his standards. Not a good year. Number 18, Bradley Beal. Kind of the same thing with him. I think he's going to still be a really solid player. I do not think he's going to be good for his standards. Last year, you could say was even bad for his standards recently, but this year is going to be even a lot worse. 18 is still a respectable starting small forward, just not anywhere near where Bradley Beal's been in years past. Number 17, Klay Thompson. He's going to be a small forward this year. He was a shooting guard last year. He was number 15th last year. I think he's going to be right around that same spot here as a small forward. I think he's going to have a lesser role. Like, he's not going to be shooting the ball a whole lot, honestly, but he probably could average around 18 points a game. But it's going to be primarily three-point shots and not much else. Number 16, Deni Avdija from Portland. He was really good in Washington. I think it's going to be slightly worse, mostly because the Blazers have better pieces around them than the Wizards did. So he's not going to have as big of a role, but he's still going to be a really solid player this year. Number 15, I got Jaden McDaniels from the Timberwolves. He's going to be right around the same player he was last year. He was number 16. Now he's at 15, so maybe slightly better, but still, he's not going to do much different. I don't expect him to improve much over the course of his career. Probably be around the same type of player he was last season, which is still a really solid starting player here for the Timberwolves. Number 14, Kyle Kuzma. I have him moving up 5 spots here. He was a power forward last year, so transitioning to small forward could honestly move him up a couple spots in its own. But he's going to be have an even bigger role this year, probably because there is no Deni Avdija, there's no trade, no Tyus Jones. He does have rookie Alexander Sarr to battle with, but he's going to be shooting the ball the majority of the times here for the Wizards. Number 13, I got R.J. Barrett. I'm dropping a few spots here. He was number 7 last year. He was honestly really good last year. I expect him to be slightly worse this year. Still a really solid player, but not a top 10 small forward this year. Number 12, OG Anunoby. I have him dropping 2 spots here. He was really good last year. I do think he drops a couple of spots because the Knicks have a lot more talent than they did last season. Number 11, I got Franz Wagner from the Magic. He did not do good in the postseason at all, but I expect him to do really good here in the regular season once again and be a borderline top 10 small forward. Number 10 is going to be Michael Porter Jr. from the Nuggets. He's been a top 10-ish small forward for the last few seasons. He's been really good in the postseason the last couple of years. I expect him to, be averaging close to 20 points a game here for the Nuggets. Number 9, I got Brandon Ingram, who was a shooting guard last year at number 8. Moves down 1 spot, but also moves to a small forward. He's probably going to be a little worse than he was last year. Adding DeJounte Murray is going to, take some pressure off of Brandon Ingram, but he's still going to be a top 10 player at his position, I believe. Number 8 has been Bane. He was a point guard last year, and he was at number 13. He now moves to a shooting guard and is number 8. So moving to a small forward and is number 8. So even adding, a healthy John Morant and a healthy Marcus Smart, hopefully, I think Desmond Bane, honestly, is going to play about the same that he did last season, which keeps him, moving to a small forward. I think that moves him up a few spots, even if he does have around the same type of numbers that he did last year. Number 7 could be Zach LaVine. He was injured most of last season, so he was unranked. I think he's going to improve a lot from where he was last season, though, and be a top 7 small forward here for the Chicago Bulls. Number 6, DeMar DeRozan. He was number 4 last year. I think he drops a couple spots because the Kings have more help around them than the Bulls did last year, but I do think he's going to be a very, very good player here for the Sacramento Kings. Number 5, Jalen Williams. He's number 10 last year as a power forward. I think moving to a small forward, again, moves him up a couple spots in its own, but I do think he's going to have a really, really good year. He could average 24 points a game this year. I would not be surprised at all. Number 4, Paul George. He's moving up 1 spot from number 5 to number 4. He's going to be basically the same type of player he was. He just barely moves up 1 spot here. Number 3 is going to be Jaylen Brown. He was number 3 last year. He won Finals MVP. So I think he's going to be about the same type of player that he was last year, just slightly better than Paul George, mostly because I think he is a better defender at this point in their career. Number 2, Butler. I had him ranked higher than Jaylen Brown last year. I do not have any reason to adjust those ratings. Jimmy Butler is going to be very, very good, this year once again. Number 1, got LeBron James. He was number 1 last year. Again, he's like 40 years old. He turns 40 in December, so he very well could fall off a little bit, but again, there's really been no fall off in his career at this point, so there's no point for me to, kind of predict any sort of fall off. So yeah, that's going to be it for this video. Thank you for watching. Make sure to check back tomorrow for a power forward rankings, and goodbye.